Kia ora, boys and girls. I wanted to read to you an old story. It's retold by a fellow called Miles Kelly, and but it comes from Hans Christian Andersen, and it's called "The Emperor's New Clothes." You might have heard it. There was once an emperor who loved new clothes above everything else. Designers, tailors, cloth makers, dryers, and specialists in all sorts of needlework travelled to his city from all over the world. Anyone who could suggest flashy, fancy new outfits for the emperor was always welcome. One day it was the turn of two weavers to be quickly ushered into the emperor's dressing room. The emperor, his butler, and all his officers of the royal wardrobe gasped with amazement as they listened to them describe the work. "We have created a special fabric that is so light and airy the weaver cannot feel it," the first weaver announced. "Our samples are top secret, you know, which is why we have not been able to bring any to show you," the second weaver explained. "However, we can assure you that not only are our designs and patterns exquisitely beautiful," said the first, "but the fabric has the unique advantage that it is completely invisible to anyone not worthy of its job." "Well, who is just plain stupid?" laughed the second weaver. And all the emperor and his courtiers gasped and chuckled along. "We will be honored if you would like to order the first suit made out of this extraordinary fabric, Your Majesty," said the first weaver, bowing low. The emperor clapped his hands with delight. "I'd like to place an order right away," he commanded, and he gave the two weavers a large sum of money so that they could buy the rare, expensive materials they needed and begin their work without delay. And there are the tricky weavers. The weavers set up their looms in the palace studio and got going. News of the strange cloth spread like wildfire, and soon everyone was talking about it. But the weavers worked behind closed doors, and no one got even a glimpse of what they were doing. Still, day and night, everyone heard the looms clicking and the shuttles flying, and the work on the magical cloth seemed to be progressing well. As the days went on, the emperor began to feel rather uneasy about seeing the cloth for the first time. "Imagine if I can't see the fabric myself," he thought. "How dreadfully embarrassing that would be." The worried emperor decided to send his trusted old butler to see how the weavers were getting on. He was sure his butler was both fit for his job and very wise, and would be sure to see the wonderful material. The weavers bowed low and ushered the butler into the studio. But the butler couldn't see anything at all. "Heavens above," the butler thought to himself. "Those looms look totally bare to me. Must either be a bad butler or else I'm an idiot. No one must find out." So he praised the material he could not see, told the king that the weaver's work was indeed magnificent, and everyone in the city heard that the cloth was truly unbelievable. Soon afterwards, the weaver sent word to the emperor that they needed more money to buy essential items for the work. The emperor had been so delighted with the butler's report that he sent them twice as much money as before. The emperor was more excited than ever. "I'm going to have the most amazing suit of clothing in the whole wide world." Eventually, just as the impatient emperor thought he was going to explode, the weavers announced their work was finished. They went to the dressing room to present the material to the emperor amid fanfares of trumpets. "Is the cloth not beautiful beyond all imagining?" the weaver sighed. The emperor smiled a wide smile, trying to hide his horror. All of the weavers appeared to be holding before him was thin air. The emperor's worst fear had come true. To him, the cloth was invisible. "I cannot afford to be a fool or not be worthy to be the ruler," the despairing emperor thought. So he beamed and leant forwards and inspected the air. "Wonderful! Splendid! Magnificent!" he cried. And his butler and all the officers of the royal wardrobe nodded and cried out compliments. None of them could see anything either, but they weren't about to risk their jobs by admitting it. So the weavers got out their tape measures and their scissors, and they set about cutting the thin air. Or so it seemed, into a pattern. All night long they sewed with needles that appeared to have no thread, and in the morning they announced that the emperor's new clothes were ready. "If your majesty would care to disrobe, we will dress you in the amazing garments." The emperor swallowed hard and took off all his clothes. The weavers helped them on with underpants and trousers and a shirt and jacket that he couldn't see. "Aren't they lighter than cobwebs?" they sighed. The emperor spluttered disagreement. He couldn't feel that he had any clothes on at all. The emperor stood back and looked at himself in the mirror. According to what he saw, he didn't have a stitch on. But he turned this way and that, pretending to admire himself. And the butler and all the officers of the royal wardrobe cried out, "How wonderfully the new clothes fit you, sire! And we have never seen the like of the amazing colours. And the design is a work of genius." Even though it looked to them as if the emperor was as naked as the day he was born. "Everyone else can see my new suit except me," the emperor thought to himself glumly, and he walked out of the palace to parade before the people in his marvelous new clothes. The streets were lined with hundreds of people who oohed and ahed over the emperor's invisible new clothes, for none of them wanted to admit they couldn't see them. Suddenly a little boy, there he is, in a shrill voice, rose over the applause of the crowd. "But he's got nothing on! Nothing on at all!" Suddenly there was a stunned silence, and the little boy found that hundreds of pairs of eyes were staring at him. Then somebody sniggered, and someone else tried to stifle a giggle. Another person guffaw and snorted, and the whole crowd burst into uncontrollable peals of laughter. The emperor's face turned as red as a ripe tomato. "I am indeed a fool," he murmured. "I have been swindled by two tricksters." And he ran back to the palace as fast as his short, naked legs could carry him. But the clever and now very rich weavers were long gone. There's the bag of money they went off with. It's a wonderful story, and it's been told and retold over the years. And it's a story about pretentiousness, pride by the emperor, not wanting to admit what was obvious in front of his eyes, and all those who surrounded him. Fancy having advisors who never tell you the truth, but only what they think you want to hear. And then, of course, there was this little boy who kind of just states the obvious. "He's got no clothes on." Sometimes we need little boys like that to say, "Well, those grand schemes you do, actually, they're not all that great at all." So there's a touch of realism that comes in, sometimes in the role of the smallest, least powerful person in the whole crowd. Anyway, have a blessed week, and hope you've got some nice clothes to wear. Take care. Bye.